Something unusual is unfolding in American politics right now, and many people still haven't fully grasped its significance. It could shape not only the next election, but also the direction the country takes in the years ahead. On the morning of March 22nd, 2026, a quiet Sunday when most Americans were attending church or sharing breakfast with their families, the President of the United States published one of the most remarkable public statements seen from someone holding that office. In a single message on Truth Social, Donald Trump launched a barrage of attacks across the political landscape. He targeted Gavin Newsom, calling him a racist and questioning his mental fitness. He criticized James Tallarico, the Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate in Texas, describing him as an insult to Jesus. He dismissed Jasmine Crockett as low IQ. In the same message, he referenced veganism, mask-wearing, and gender identity as if they were charges in an indictment, before ending with a brief remark suggesting that Kamala Harris had returned to the political spotlight. Many observers might look at that post and conclude it was simply Trump being Trump. After years of political noise, the country has grown accustomed to a certain style of communication from this president. But when a sitting president lashes out at so many figures in so many directions at once on a quiet Sunday morning, it raises questions. Such a moment may reveal anxiety rather than confidence, suggesting that something larger is happening beneath the surface of American politics. Signs of movement are already visible in special election results, in approval ratings, and in the broader political atmosphere. The ground under the system appears to be shifting. To understand the significance of that post, it helps to look at the environment the president woke up to that morning. Since the start of Trump's second term, Democrats have flipped 28 state legislative seats across traditionally Republican or battleground states. According to reporting by Politico, that number alone created concern within Republican circles. In February, a Democrat even won a deeply conservative Texas state Senate seat by double digits during a special election, an outcome many political observers considered highly unusual. Meanwhile, James Tallarico, a 36-year-old lawmaker from Austin, secured the Democratic nomination for U.S. Senate after defeating Jasmine Crockett in the primary. For decades, Democrats have struggled to win statewide races in Texas, but his candidacy has drawn national attention and renewed discussion about the state's political future. At the same time, Gavin Newsom has been steadily building a national profile. Publications such as Politico and The Atlantic have described him as a leading Democratic figure heading toward the 2028 presidential contest. His book tour, media appearances, and willingness to challenge the White House have increased his visibility across the country. While these developments unfold, the president's own approval numbers have been slipping. An early March survey from YouGov in partnership with economists placed his approval rating at a net negative 21, the lowest of his second term so far. Polling also suggests he is underwater in several key swing states. Against that backdrop, the confrontational post on Truth Social begins to look less like routine political commentary and more like a response to a shifting environment. Looking closely at the language of that post reveals its focus. The president described Tallarico as a fraud and criticized details about his lifestyle, mentioning vegan food, mask wearing during the pandemic years, and other personal traits. He claimed Republicans had allowed Tallarico to win his primary over Crockett and included a brief joke referencing the historical figure Davy Crockett. He then turned his attention to Newsom, using a nickname and accusing the governor of mental incapacity. The criticism was partly tied to a February appearance in Atlanta, where Newsom discussed his struggles with dyslexia and low SAT scores, while speaking to a predominantly black audience during his book tour. Trump used that moment to argue that Newsom had disqualified himself politically. Reading the statement line by line, the emphasis is less on policy and more on cultural and personal themes: race, religion, disability, lifestyle choices, and pandemic behavior. For critics, that style of communication raises concerns about the tone set by national leadership. Former presidents and political veterans often note that every public statement from the Oval Office carries weight, shaping political culture far beyond a single news cycle. Words spoken by a president echo through media coverage, public debate, and the broader national conversation. The deeper question raised by this moment is not only about rhetoric, but also about strategy. Some analysts believe the primary target of the president's message was not Tallarico or Crockett, but Newsom, a potential rival in a future national campaign. By defining opponents early, through nicknames or criticisms, a candidate attempts to shape public perception long before a presidential race officially begins. In that sense, the March 2026 post may reflect an effort to frame the political battlefield years ahead of the 2028 election. At the same time, the episode illustrates how volatile the political climate has become. When presidential communication centers on personal attacks rather than policy discussion, it can intensify polarization and make constructive dialogue more difficult. Critics argue that such rhetoric risks eroding the norms that once guided American political debate. Supporters counter that it reflects the blunt, confrontational style many voters expect from modern politics. Meanwhile, the individuals mentioned in that post continue to shape the political conversation in their own ways. Tallarico responded to criticism not with a press statement, but by delivering a sermon in a church in Texas, speaking about faith, compassion, and the treatment of vulnerable people. Newsom continues to expand his national presence as a Democratic voice willing to confront the White House. And Crockett remains an active figure in Congress. Where this leads remains uncertain. Some observers believe the attacks could elevate the profiles of the figures targeted, giving them greater national visibility. Others see the episode as a reflection of deeper tensions within American politics, as both parties position themselves for the next round of elections. With midterm contests approaching and approval numbers fluctuating, the environment remains highly fluid. The larger lesson may be about the resilience of democratic institutions. American politics has often been turbulent, marked by sharp disagreements and dramatic rhetoric. Yet throughout its history, the system has relied on voters, elections, and institutions to correct course over time. The pendulum of public opinion has swung back and forth for generations, shaped by debate, participation, and civic engagement. Moments like this remind the country that leadership style, political strategy, and public perception all matter. They also highlight the responsibility that comes with holding the highest office in the nation. Ultimately, the direction of the country will not be determined by a single social media post or a single news cycle, but by how citizens interpret these events and the choices they make when they step into a voting booth.